Welcome to The Explainer. So we're going to start with a pretty wild idea today. What if you're not just a biological machine? What if you're actually something way, way more powerful? We're about to map out a journey that connects ancient mysticism with some really out there science, charting a path from what some call a biological prison all the way to a cosmic antenna.
And this is really at the heart of our explainer. See, the source material we're digging into today argues that this whole modern idea of ourselves as just meat machines, a simple collection of programmed biological responses, is totally, fundamentally incomplete. It suggests there's a much deeper reality we can all tap into if we can just figure out how to find the key.
So where does this feeling of being trapped even come from? Well, our sources give it a name: the carbon suit. And listen, this isn't just about your physical body, not at all. Think of it more like the psychological programming, the entire operating system of fear, of limitation, and of ego that keeps our true, deeper potential totally locked away.
Now, according to this framework, the carbon suit doesn't just exist in a vacuum. Nope. It operates inside a very specific kind of prison, a prison built on a fundamental duality, a reality really defined by two completely different competing frequencies.
And here they are, those two frequencies laid right out. On the left, you've got what's called the matrix. Now, this isn't sci-fi. It's the reality run by our amygdala, our ancient survival brain. It operates on a program of scarcity and fear. But then on the right, there's the flow, a state of abundance and wisdom that we access through our intuition, that little inner spark. This is really the central choice presented in our sources. Are you going to operate from a place of fear or from a place of flow?
So, just how deep does this matrix prison really go? Well, our sources borrow a concept from Sufi cosmology to map out all its layers, the 7 Earths. And just to be clear, this has nothing to do with geology. You should think of these as 7 descending frequencies of consciousness, and each one gets denser and heavier than the last.
This chart, right here, it maps out that whole descent. Let's just take a second with this. We all start at Earth 1, the surface, which is our shared physical reality. But, and this is the important part, notice how we can sink. Earth 2 is the emotional trap, that feeling of being weighted down by attachments. Then comes Earth 3, the shadow, where all our hidden motives and ego live. By the time you get to Earth 4, you're just operating from the animal soul, pure survival instinct, that raw amygdala, and it just gets denser and denser, leading to the veiled self at Earth 6, where that meat machine feeling of total disconnection just takes over. And finally, you have Earth 7, called Sijin in the source texts, which is the absolute bottom, total ego entrapment, total darkness.
So what actually causes this sinking? Get this, the crucial insight here is that our actions and our intentions have a kind of spiritual weight to them. The sources even point to a Hadi tradition suggesting that injustice literally increases your spiritual density. So when our focus is all on ego, on scarcity, and on taking from others, the soul loses its natural buoyancy and just sinks down into these lower, heavier frequencies of reality.
Okay, so if that's the prison, how in the world do we get out? This is where our sources switch gears, moving from diagnosis to prescription. They actually propose 3 totally distinct keys to liberation, and they're drawn from very different wisdom traditions that can unlock all the gates.
All right, key number 1 comes from the ancient Gnostics. Gnostic texts describe our reality as the creation of the demiurge. Think of it as a flawed, ego-driven imposter god who built this whole material world out of fear. But trapped inside this flawed creation is something called Sophia, which means wisdom. She represents a hidden spark of the true divine light. It's like the glitch in the matrix, that reminds us of where we really come from and gives us a path to escape.
The second key, it comes from a pretty surprising place: early American history. It's from Roger Williams, the founder of Rhode Island, who was a huge champion of the idea of soul liberty. He argued that a person's individual conscience was a heaven-born jewel and had an absolute, untouchable right to resonate freely, without any outside pressure from the state or the church. So in this framework, soul liberty basically acts like a protective shield, creating the space we need for the soul to find its own true frequency.
And the third key is found right inside the Quran, which presents the universe itself as a kind of book of signs, or ayat. And just look at what's on this list: an expanding universe, celestial bodies swimming in orbit, the relativity of time. These are concepts modern science has only recently confirmed. The source material argues that these aren't just random physical facts.
They are cosmic data points, put there intentionally to remind anyone who reflects on them that the outer universe is a mirror of our inner self, and that everything ultimately flows back to a single, unified source.
Okay, so, armed with these keys, how do we actually climb out of the seven Earths? Our sources map a path of ascent that perfectly mirrors the descent we just talked about. And again, we're not talking about physical space travel here. This is all about intentionally raising your conscious awareness through 7 distinct frequencies, or what they call heavens.
This journey upward is a step-by-step process of shedding that ego. According to the text this is based on, each of these 7 heavens, or frequencies, has a gate, and it's guarded by a prophetic figure who represents a specific lesson you have to learn. For example, to get through the first heaven, you have to master the lesson of Adam. You have to recognize the one in the many, the unity in all of humanity. To pass through the second, it's the lesson of Jesus, embodying love without scarcity. You see how it's a progression, right? From realizing reality is like a dream with Joseph, to mastering your own voice with Aaron, until you finally reach the highest levels and you arrive home.
So, what's the final destination of this incredible journey? Well, it's not a place. It's a state of being. It's a complete and total transformation from a carbon-based prisoner to a cosmic tree.
So how does this whole transformation even begin? It all starts with something the sources call the mustard seed. Now, this is a metaphor for that tiny, infinitesimal spark of Sophia, that divine consciousness we talked about earlier, that's hidden deep inside the carbon suit. And the really fascinating idea here is that this isn't just some poetic concept. It's connected to the zero-point potential within our very DNA, just waiting for the right frequency to activate it.
And when that seed is intentionally cultivated, it grows into the ultimate form, the tree of life. And just look at this anatomy for a second. The roots, that's your own ancestral DNA, now grounded and redeeming the past through the very 7 Earths you just escaped from. The trunk becomes this clear channel for pure, frictionless energy. And the branches, they reach upward through the 7 heavens, receiving and then bearing the fruit of true infinite abundance from the source.
This slide right here really just summarizes the entire transformation. It's incredible. You go from the carbon suit on the left, this closed loop of ego just running a deterministic, fear-based program, and you become the crystalline antenna on the right. The word crystalline here implies something coherent, structured, stable. You become an antenna for light, operating in a self-sustaining flow of abundance, and you're powered not by raw instinct, but by the focused, conscious intent of the observer.
And so, this whole synthesis of ancient spirituality and speculative science, it leaves us with one final powerful question. If the manual for our reality is based on the frequency we choose to tune into, if we really can shift from a carbon suit to a crystalline antenna, then the choice really falls to each of us. What reality will you choose to observe into being?